What's going on, guys? We're back with another MLB video, and today we're going to be doing standing predictions for the entire league, going all the way from the AL East to the NL West. We're going to be going over every team and why I feel like they're either going to be good, bad, terrible, great, and everything in between. This is going to be a long video. It's going to be a fun video, so we're not going to waste any time, and we're going to get straight into the action. Starting off with the AL East, we have the New York Yankees, who, as a fan of them, I have to try and be as objective as possible, but I think as of right now, just talent-wise, they're probably unmatched in the AL East, and I'll explain why. First off, that offense is absolutely ridiculous. 1-9 is just so deep, so good, it's crazy. The main issue with this team is the starting rotation. It's the same issue that's been prevalent for like the last 3 to 4 years now, and while they did make some interesting moves in the offseason, such as Corey Kluber, Jameson Taillon, and they have guys coming back like Domingo Germán and Luis Severino, that's the only issue. There's a lot of what ifs. I like what they did with the bullpen, but the big thing for the Yankees is A, having the big guys like Judge, Stanton stay healthy, and B, having the guys they picked up to be in the rotation actually perform at a decent level and also stay healthy. But if everything goes right for them, and so far through spring training it's gone all right, then I think this team is easily one of the best in the league, probably number 2 behind the Dodgers, and maybe they can actually win a World Series for the first time in like 12 years. And at number 2 in the AL East, we have the Toronto Blue Jays, and while it may be controversial not to have the Rays here, I gotta be honest, I really like what this team did in the offseason. They picked up a lot of really nice players to fill around their young core, like George Springer, Kirby Yates, Marcus Semien, and you have that combined with Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Biggio's son, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Teoscar Hernandez, and this team is just, it's very interesting. The one thing that I think they need to have is pitching consistency. Hyun-Jin Ryu was fantastic last year. If he can have another year like that, it's going to be very helpful. But I still think they're going to have to pick up a little more pitching maybe at the deadline to really compete with the top dogs. But I really like what they're doing. I like that they're trying to win, and I think they have a really solid team going into 2021. Next up in third place, we have the Tampa Bay Rays, and I know a lot of their fans are probably saying, fuck you, how are we in third place? We just came off a World Series appearance, but I will explain. First off, I don't think it's a bad third place. I just think it's a not as good as the other two teams' third place finish. A couple of their big guys are gone, like Snell and Morton and Jose Alvarado, but they also made some interesting pickups in the offseason, like Chris Archer brought him back into the fold, Michael Wacha, who if he stays healthy can be effective, and Rich Hill too, who has his infamous blister problems. And knowing the Rays, knowing the way they operate, all three of these guys will be fantastic next year. But that's the only thing about Tampa Bay. I feel like year to year they're really hard to predict just because they have really good talent evaluators, and there's always guys on this team that you don't expect to do great, but they always do. But I definitely think they're going to be right in the middle of things, and from what we've seen in the past, it's really hard to bet against these guys. And at number 4, we have the Boston Red Sox, who the best way I can describe this team right now is just kind of a fucking mess. I mean, you got Sale coming back at some point, good. The rest of the rotation, I don't know, man. Between just guys that aren't really that good and a lot of question marks with injuries, like Eduardo Rodriguez, you don't know what you're gonna get. They have a pretty solid group of position players, though, I can definitely admit that, but the main problem here is the pitching, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. It wasn't good last year. It wasn't really great in 2019 either, and they didn't really do a whole lot to improve in the offseason, so I don't really see this team being competitive. And also, Alex Cora is back as the manager, and I gotta be honest, I'm praying on his downfall. Do not rock with Alex Cora. So I think 4th place is a reasonable finish for the Boston Red Sox. And at number 5, we have the Baltimore Orioles, and while this isn't exactly the most surprising as they're still right in the middle of their rebuild, I do like what they're doing. I think they're going in the right direction here. They have a lot of young talent that's going to be coming up over the next few years that looks very promising. And I think with the new guys they have in charge in the upper, front office and all that, they're going to be making smart moves. But the only issue is they're just not quite there yet. But if anything, I think 2021 is going to be a year for them where we see some solid improvements. And I think in the future, Orioles fans have a lot to be excited for. Moving on to the American League Central. In first place, we have the Minnesota Twins, who despite shitting the bed in the postseason, once again, I think are still a very good team. In the offseason, they brought in J.A. Happ and Hansel Robles, as well as bringing back Nelson Cruz, which always a good move. That offense is absolutely dirty. It's loaded from 1 to 9. They got good power hitters. They got good contact guys. And I think once again, they're going to have one of the better offenses in all of baseball. But the one issue here is the pitching depth. I feel like that's been their issue for the last few years too. They should definitely go out and get some more pitching before the trade deadline. But even if they don't, I think they're going to be right in the middle of things and definitely be one of the better teams in the American League once again. Moving on to second place, we have the Chicago White Sox. Sox, who keep making good moves in the offseason to build around that young core they have. This previous one, they picked up Lance Lynn, Liam Hendricks, and Adam Eaton all into the fold, and I think honestly they've improved their team overall quite a bit. They're solid all around the board. They have a solid rotation. They have solid hitters. Bullpen could use a little bit of work, but that's not that hard to fix. And I think they're going to make the race to first place with Minnesota a lot tighter than most people might think, especially if all the young stars perform like they're supposed to. This is definitely going to be a team to watch out for now and for sure in the future. And at third place, we have the Cleveland Indians, and this is a team that I want to put higher. We've seen them have success in previous years, but they're just not doing anything to improve the team. In fact, they're actively subtracting just to save money, which I completely hate in baseball. It's ridiculous. They traded Lindor to the Mets. Jose Ramirez is on one of the last few years of his contract. He's probably next, especially if the team isn't performing as well as they should this year. And we all know Shane Bieber's getting moved at some point too. The rotation is definitely still the strong point of this team. They've needed better outfielders for the last 2 years, have not done anything to improve that, and I think we're going to see a very average season, a painfully average one for Cleveland, and their fans unfortunately have to suffer through it. In at fourth place, we have the Kansas City Royals, who, like the Baltimore Orioles, are still rebuilding, but just not quite there yet. They've made some solid additions in the offseason. They picked up Carlos Santana, Mike Minor, Andrew Benintendi, and while I think these placeholder moves are going to be good for them, I don't think it's going to be good enough to elevate them into contention, but I do like what they're trying to do. I think they're moving in the right direction, and I think in the next few years, we're going to see them go back to kind of near that 2014 level. You know, you could never say they're definitely going to go to the World Series, but they're moving towards contention for sure. And on to fifth place, we have the Detroit Tigers, who unfortunately are still kind of a mess. While rebuilding, they do have a lot of promising young talent that should be coming up relatively soon. A full year of Casey Mize is going to be nice. Their number one pick last year, Spencer Tolkinson, I butchered the name, don't mind it. He's looking to be really good, even if he doesn't come up this year. And they have a lot of guys just in that whole minor league system they've built up that have a lot of promise, but of course with prospects you never quite know, and I think they're not there yet. I think the Royals are a little bit above them just due to the major league moves the Royals have made, and unfortunately it's going to be another last place finish here for the Tigers fans. Moving on to the AL West, in first place we have the Houston Astros, and don't get it twisted, I fucking hate this team. I don't respect the organization, and I think they're a bunch of dickwads running the squad, but I have to admit, last year in the playoffs, they proved they still got something in the tank. They proved they still have something in the tank. They brought back Michael Brantley, and although they did lose George Springer, Brantley will definitely be a big piece to helping the offense stay afloat, as well as making some moves to improve their bullpen. And the simple fact is, the rest of the AL West really isn't doing anything. So I think based on pure talent alone, the Astros are going to get it. And as much as it pains me to say, we're going to be seeing them finish in first place once again. Moving on to the Oakland Athletics, we have an interesting team here. Tommy La Stella is gone. Marcus Semion's gone, Liam Hendricks is gone, Chris Davis is gone, and it's tough, man, for those fans. Semion's been with them forever. Davis and Hendricks have been solid for a while too, and now a lot of that core is just not there. They still have Chapman and Olsen, but they really haven't done much to improve in the offseason. I mean, they got Elvis Andrus, but you don't expect big production from him, and despite the really non-moves to get better, they're still a solid team. They have a lot of good young pitching, and I think that's really what they're going to be hinging on throughout the year. Oakland is another team that has a lot of guys come up and produce that's not really expected, so I have a hard time betting against them. And based on what we've seen the last few years, I think they're going to find a way to get into second place. And it also doesn't hurt that the rest of the division after them is just a mess, to say the least. But we'll get into that. And we'll get into that mess here at the number 3 spot, the Los Angeles Angels, who, if I had to describe them in a single sentence, are yearly chronic underperformers. They still need pitching, which has been the main objective of their off seasons for the last 5 years, at least. And while they did trade for Rafael Iglesias from the Cincinnati Reds, which was a good move, their big starting pitching acquisition was Jose Quintana. Yeah, fumbled the bag on that one again. And honestly, this team is just frustrating to see them, you know, be operated, considering the fact that they're wasting Mike Trout's prime years, and most likely will waste his entire career just being a mediocre baseball team. That's the best way I can describe them. They have a lot of good pieces on offense, but the pitching is just not good. There's no depth, there's not that much talent on it, and they definitely don't have much. and they definitely don't have enough of it to make a run to the playoffs. And honestly, I hope I'm wrong for Mike Trout's sake. The poor guy's going to be stuck there for a long time, and it doesn't look like he's going to be winning anything anytime soon. In fourth place, we have the Texas Rangers, who are also in kind of a weird, awkward position. They're kind of rebuilding, but at the same time, their farm system isn't great, and they do have a lot of young players. They have a lot of question marks. In the offseason, they picked up David Dahl from Colorado. They picked up Kohei Erihana, who is a solid pitcher out of Japan, but I don't think these moves put them above the Astros or the A's or the Angels for that matter, and a lot of their performance hinges on guys who we don't exactly know what we're going to get. So rating them higher than fourth place is just going to be tough, and honestly, I really don't know what to expect from this team other than the fact that I know they're not going to be in the playoff race. And at number 5, we have the Seattle Mariners, who do have a lot of issues, don't get me wrong, but I gotta say I kind of like what they're doing in terms of their prospects. Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez are looking really good and should make an impact sometime in the near future. They have Mitch Haniger coming back fully healthy this year, who, when he was healthy, the guy was actually a really good player. I feel like he's fallen under a lot of radars because of the last 2 years pretty much being a non-factor. But if he can play close to his 2018 level, that's going to be a really, really nice bat to have. Unfortunately, he'll probably get shipped off somewhere, but I do think the Mariners are going kind of in the right direction. I don't think 2021 is going to be the year we see anything crazy though, and for their sake, I hope that big playoff drought ends soon because it's getting kind of ridiculous now. But eventually, the future is bright for you guys in Seattle. Now we're going to be moving on to the National League, starting with the NL East, and in first place here, I have the New York Mets. I'm buying into this hype train. I don't like Steve Cohen as a person, but I gotta admit, as a baseball owner, at least he wants to win. They had a good offseason, I say. They picked up Trevor May to help the bullpen, James McCann to solidify the catcher situation, and of course they had the big trade that got them Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. That rotation's looking kind of crazy right now, especially if Syndergaard comes back fully healthy and dealing, and I think the moves they made with the offense are definitely going to be seeing some dividends. The one thing I could say is they're going to need some bullpen help down the line, but they can definitely acquire that in the middle of the season. But I think this is finally going to be a good year for you Mets fans, and with an owner who's not actually a cheap fuck, the future is looking really good for you guys in Flushing. Honestly, after all the nonsense they've had to suffer through, I would say Mets fans deserve to have an owner who actually cares, and we'll be seeing the fruits of that starting here in 2021. In at second place, we have the Atlanta Braves, who didn't get much better in the offseason, but I feel like they did what they had to. They brought back Marcell Ozuna, who was great last year. They brought in Charlie Morton to add some pitching depth, but the main thing that's going to make or break the Atlanta Braves is their young starters staying healthy and performing at a high level. With young arms, you never really can guarantee anything, whether it's on the health side of the ball or just the performance side of the ball. And I think in regards to them being in first or second place, the Mets just have a better rotation right now that I feel like is going to hold up a lot better than the Braves one. So that's why I have them behind the Mets. But of course, we know anything is possible. But I think at some point, the Braves should definitely pick up a big game starter. If they had a big ace last year, they would have been in the World Series, in my opinion. But they're still a really good team, and I feel like we're going to see them be really good once again this year. And at third place, we have the Philadelphia Phillies, and I think they did what they had to do in this offseason. First off, they re-signed JT Realmuto, which in my opinion was absolutely necessary. They gave up a ton to get him, so if they just lost him to free agency, it'd be a complete wash. They re-signed Didi, who's always a solid player, and they improved that atrocious bullpen. And while it literally couldn't get any worse, it was historically bad. I like the moves they made. Archie Bradley, if he's healthy, can be an effective pitcher. Jose Alvarado has absolutely dirty stuff. I've seen it firsthand watching the AL East, and Sam Coonrod is not the worst pitcher ever. He's better than what they had last year. I think there are a couple of big moves away from being right up there with the big dogs here in the NL East, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this season unfolds for them, because Joe Girardi as a manager is just an overachiever. He gets the most out of his guys, even if they're not that good. So although I don't think they're better than the Mets or Braves, I think they're going to be right in the middle of things. In fourth place, we have the Washington Nationals, and I got to get this straight. I don't think they're a bad team. I just don't think they're better than the other three teams. They made some very interesting pickups, getting Kyle Schwarber, trading for Josh Bell, signing John Lester, and while I think they're going to be solid, I don't think they're going to be great or really good. I think they're going to be kind of just a little bit better than average. Although they do have some great pieces. Of course, Juan Soto is one of the best players in all of baseball. Hands down. I just don't think, just compared to the other teams in the division right now, I don't think they're better. But of course, with baseball, anything's possible. If things break the right way, they could be right in the middle of it. But as of right now, I have them in fourth place. And in last place for the NL East, we have the Miami Marlins. And while what they did last year was absolutely incredible, after having the entire clubhouse ravaged by COVID and making the playoffs, we gotta admit, it was kind of fluky. In a 60-game season, anything's possible. And the Marlins basically did the impossible by getting to the playoffs in those circumstances. chances, but over a full 162, I don't think they're going to be that good. They're going in the right direction again, like many of the other rebuilding teams, but they're just not quite there yet. They don't have the depth. They don't have the talent to sustain that over a full season, so at least hopefully they'll be fun to watch, but as of right now, I have them in last place. Alright, now moving on to the NL Central. In first place, we have the St. Louis Cardinals, and the main reason I have them at the top is because of the fact that they got Nolan Arenado for basically nothing, I may add, so that offense automatically looking a lot better, and then when it comes to pitching, they always have good pitching. I don't know how they do it, but the way they develop guys, they always end up being decent, even if you have no idea who they are, and I think just stacked up to the rest of the division, it's kind of a no-brainer that they're going to finish in first, and if they don't, I'd honestly be very surprised because the NL Central is kind of a rough one. Alright, now moving on to second place, we have the Chicago Cubs, who at this point, it looks like they're actively trying to get worse. For instance, they traded Darvish to save money, they let John Lester go, the bullpen isn't looking great. We've had trade rumors about Chris Bryant for the last few months now, and really their big offseason pickup was Jake Arrieta, who's nowhere close to how good he was in the past. But the thing is, even though they did all this to get worse, the rest of the division somehow managed to be worse, which is why we have the Cubs in second place. And at third, we have the Cincinnati Reds, who didn't really do anything to try to improve the team. Their big move this offseason was trading Rafael Iglesias for not much. They spent a lot of money on the offense last year, and they scored like no runs in the playoffs, so that worked out well. And they're basically just one of those teams that doesn't seem like they're doing anything to try and win. They don't really care as long as they're half decent. Maybe winning like 83 games, they'll be satisfied with that. But yeah, the best word I could use to describe them right now is just flat out mediocre. Trevor Bauer was a huge help to them last year. Now he's gone, so who knows what's going to happen with this team. But what I can tell you is that it probably won't be good or entertaining in any way. Moving on to fourth place, we have the Milwaukee Brewers, another team that just really hasn't done anything to try and improve. I mean, it's pretty amazing the fact that they somehow already missed their window of opportunity. I mean, 2018, this team was in the NLCS. They literally came to within one game of making it to the World Series, and now they're just kind of like, you know, whatever. Their biggest issue was always pitching. They always needed more, and they just never really solved it, this year included. So I'm not expecting big things for them. I think they're going to be a mediocre team, and it's really a shame. I mean, how fast and how far they've fallen in literally 2 years. It's rough, man. And in last place for the NL Central, who else do we have but the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are making it very, very blatantly obvious that they're trying to shed payroll, and at this point, it's kind of just pathetic. The amount of players that are going to be making more money than the entire Pirates team next year is kind of ridiculous. Their owner's a cheap sack of shit. They really just don't care whatsoever, and I've already said my piece on them in another video. I don't want to devote that much attention to them again, but yeah, this whole organization right now is just kind of a disgrace. They got good young prospects, and that's the only saving grace. They need those guys to hit, and then so they can trade them to save money in the future, because we all know that's going to end up happening, and then the cycle will repeat itself, and then you know how it goes. Last place. Now moving on to the NL West. In first place, we have the LA Dodgers, who at this point, I think it's fair to say they're probably the best run organization in the game. Coming off finally winning a World Series trophy, they're not satisfied with only doing it in a shortened season. They're going all in once again. Of course, they picked up Trevor Bauer, and now that rotation, man, is absolutely disgusting. This is the team to beat in the league. I think they're easily far and above everyone else, and there's not much else to say other than the fact that I'd be very surprised if they don't finish first and make it back to the World Series for the second year in a row, and for like the fourth time in the last 5 years. In second place, we have the San Diego Padres, who are loading up this offseason. They're going all in, pretty much the opposite of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Some of the big moves they've made so far are picking up Blake Snell from the Rays, Yu Darvish from the Cubs, and Joe Musgrove from the Pirates. And what I like about this is they're getting the guys that other guys are trying to dump to save money. And with the pitching staff they're building around the really good young core they have, this is going to be a dangerous team, man. It's a shame they're in the same division with the Dodgers, because I think the Dodgers are just flat out better and ultimately more experienced. But I have a good feeling we're going to see these two teams duke it out for years to come. And hopefully we're going to see that start in 2021, even though we kind of had it in 2020. But with the full season, it'll be a different story. And it's definitely going to be a good race, because this team is doing everything right. At third place, we have the San Francisco Giants. And to be completely honest, there's not a whole lot to say about this team. They're still in the middle of a rebuild. They have a lot of old players who might get shipped off at the trade deadline this year, and they're just kind of mediocre, you know? They don't have a whole lot going on right now, but I think they're under good leadership, and I think eventually they're going to turn the ship around. This is a city that likes to win. Obviously, they've done quite a bit of it in the last decade, so while I think they're going to be pretty, you know, whatever again this year, and it might even be a few more years before they turn it around fully, I think eventually they're going to get back to where they want to be. But 2021, not quite yet. In fourth place, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, who in my opinion are kind of like they're in a Milwaukee situation like I described before. A few years ago, they were in the playoffs, they made the wild card game, and although they lost, they did get there. But over the offseason, they really just haven't done anything. I mean, they got Joakim Soria to be in the back of the bullpen, but other than that, there's not much going on here. Who knows how long before Ketel Marte gets traded? They're not really trying to improve the team much, so I don't expect anything from them. It's another unfortunate situation where they had an opportunity to improve, and they just didn't really build on it, so here we are, back to mediocrity. And that's pretty much why I have them in fourth place. There's not much else to say other than that. And as we move into fifth place, is it really any question? The Colorado Rockies. I have no idea what this team is going for. Let's put things in perspective. They gave the Cardinals $50 million to take their best player, and they didn't get anything good back. How? Why? When you have a generational talent like that, and I get there might have been a bad relationship between him and the ownership, which, why wouldn't you try to get a good relationship with your best player? Fucking brain dead, first off. And even if that is the case, you gotta cut your losses in a way that doesn't screw the entire team. Can you imagine being a player on the Rockies and seeing that trade? How demoralizing that is, that you just sent your best player for nothing and actually paid to get rid of him? It just does not make any sense. The ownership is running this team into the ground. They're not going to be good anytime soon. It's only a matter of time till Trevor Story's traded. I'm sure he's having a blast over there. And for Rockies fans, man, I feel bad for you guys. Really sucks. A few years ago, this team had so much potential, and now they're just throwing it all away. Hopefully, down the line, someone competent will buy the team and try to turn it around, but for the time being, it does not look like that's going to be happening. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. Those are my predictions for the 2021 MLB season. Let me know your predictions down in the comments section below. If you agree, disagree with me, we'll have a nice little conversation. And as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Stay safe out there. I'm out. Peace.